there are moments in every relationship when something quiet inside us taps our shoulder. An uneasiness, a hesitation, a subtle shift in the way affection feels. This introduction isn't about judgment or drama. It's about learning to recognize those moments the way the Stoics did, calmly, honestly, and without fear. Think of it like standing at the edge of a still lake at dawn. The surface looks peaceful, but if you watch closely, you'll notice the slightest ripple revealing something beneath. Many old folk tales speak of this same intuition, like the story of the woman who noticed her husband's shoes always came home dustier than the path he claimed to walk. She didn't accuse him. She observed, she reflected, and she sought clarity. The Stoics would have admired that. To understand these subtle signs, we need to understand the Stoics themselves. They weren't emotionless statues sitting alone in caves. They were people living in messy societies, navigating friendships, betrayals, and love, all with remarkable clarity. They believed affection was not just a feeling, but a form of alignment between two lives. Seneca wrote, "We are born for cooperation, like two hands reaching for the same task," reminding us that genuine affection has a rhythm, a harmony. When that harmony changes, even slightly, Stoic thinkers didn't panic. They leaned in with curiosity. They used self-honesty as their compass and gentle observation as their method. So the real question becomes this: how do we know when that harmony has shifted? What happens when small changes in behavior whisper louder than the words we hear? Before exploring answers, the Stoics would first insist we ask the right question, the one that opens the door to truth rather than fear. And that question is exactly where this journey leads next. If you felt connected to the ideas in the introduction, if even one sentence made you pause, reflect, or see your relationship a bit differently, then don't leave just yet. Hit subscribe, tap like, and drop a comment sharing your own thoughts or experiences. Your voice helps shape this community, and every interaction tells the algorithm that thoughtful, meaningful discussions deserve to be seen. So, join in. Your engagement isn't just support, it's part of the journey. Sign 1. Indifference to your needs. There's a certain silence in relationships that feels heavier than words, an emotional distance that creeps in not with arguments but with indifference. When your needs begin to fade into the background of someone else's life, it's like watching a candle burn lower each night until you suddenly realize the room has gone dim. The Stoics understood this kind of emotional neglect not through modern psychology, but through the lens of human behavior and the subtle ways people show where their hearts truly stand. They paid attention to patterns, to consistency, to the warmth or absence of it that radiated from daily actions. And in old folk stories, this same theme appears again and again. The traveler who returned home to find his dog wagged its tail more eagerly than his wife greeted him. No one told him the truth outright, but the indifference spoke for itself. To understand this through Stoic eyes, we look at their deeper teachings about human bonds. The Stoics believed every relationship is shaped by a shared sense of care, what they called eunoia, goodwill of the soul. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," reminding us that affection is not something people declare, it's something they live. When someone stops weaving you into their thoughts, their actions naturally lose color. This isn't about blame, it's about facing the reality of emotional imbalance. When affection fades, the Stoics didn't rush to conclusions. They observed patiently, tracing the pattern of behavior the way sailors read the sky before a storm. Indifference to your needs often shows itself in the smallest moments. You mention your day, and they nod without listening. You express a worry, and they brush it off with a distracted, "You'll be fine." These are not dramatic betrayals, they are quiet signals. Folk wisdom has a story about a woman who placed a cup of warm tea in front of her husband each night. When he stopped drinking it and no longer explained why, she knew something had changed. not because he said a word, but because he no longer cared enough to engage with the ritual they once shared. The Stoics would say, this is the moment the relationship shifts from partnership to parallel lives. And here's where the deeper question rises, the one the Stoics would ask before offering any solution. If indifference has become the new language of your relationship, what does it reveal about the connection you both have now? This is not a question to fear, but an invitation to clarity, one that sets the stage for understanding what comes next. Sign 2. Lack of shared values. There comes a moment in some relationships when you realize that the two of you aren't walking the same road anymore. At first, the difference is barely noticeable, like two lanterns drifting slightly apart in the dark. But over time, the distance grows, and the glow that once guided you both starts to fade. The Stoics believed that values were the invisible threads that held human connections together. Not the loud moments, not the grand gestures, but the quiet similarities in how two people see the world. In folk stories, this theme shows up in tales like the couple who once planted their garden together. When the husband began planting fruit trees while the wife planted flowers with no discussion, no agreement, it wasn't the plants that mattered. It was the silent shift that revealed deeper division. From a Stoic perspective, shared values were more important than shared interests. Epictetus wrote, "A ship should not ride on a single anchor, nor life on a single hope," meaning that relationships require more than fleeting emotion. They need a foundation of principles that keep both people steady. When partners no longer align on honesty, kindness, responsibility, or integrity, affection loses its anchor. The Stoics observed people not by what they claimed to believe, but by how they acted when life tested them. If one person meets challenges with patience while the other falls into blame or avoidance, the difference becomes a widening fracture rather than a mild contrast. The lack of shared values often appears in ordinary, almost forgettable moments. One partner lies to keep the peace, while the other believes truth is the only way forward. One sees promises as flexible, the other treats their word as sacred. There's a folk tale about a farmer who married a merchant's daughter. He believed in working until sunset. She believed in ending the day early to rest and enjoy life. Neither was wrong, but they never learned to honor each other's values. Over time, they didn't fight. They simply drifted apart, each misunderstanding the other more with every passing season. Their affection faded not because of conflict, but because their foundations didn't match. And so the Stoics would guide us toward a pivotal question, one that sits quietly beneath the tension. If your values no longer align, what does that reveal about the direction your relationship is truly heading? This question isn't meant to condemn, it's meant to illuminate. Because noticing misalignment is the first step toward understanding whether the bond can be strengthened or whether it's already unraveling thread by thread. Sign 3. Avoiding spending quality time with you. There's a particular kind of silence that enters a relationship, not the peaceful kind, but the empty kind. It shows up when the person you care about starts finding reasons not to be around you. Suddenly, they're too tired, too busy, or always catching up on something. It doesn't happen like a storm. It happens like dusk, slow, unnoticed, and then suddenly dark. The Stoics observed that genuine affection naturally pulls people toward one another. When someone avoids shared time, it's often a sign that their inner world is shifting. In old village stories, people used to say, when someone stops sitting by your fire at night, they've already begun building a home in their own mind elsewhere. From a Stoic viewpoint, time was the purest expression of value. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more precious than time, and those wise guard it carefully." If your partner protects their time for everything and everyone except you, that absence speaks louder than their excuses. The Stoics didn't measure affection through words, because words can be bent. Instead, they looked at patterns. If someone once lingered in your company but now rushes away, If laughter shared becomes replaced with quick nods and half smiles, their behavior tells a story long before their mouth does. This avoidance often appears in simple, believable moments. Maybe you suggest a short walk, but they decline without even looking up. Maybe you ask them to watch a show together, something you used to enjoy, and they suddenly don't feel like it anymore. There's a folktale of a shepherd who realized his wife's love was fading when she stopped joining him at the well at sunset. For years, they'd meet there daily, talking as the sky changed colors. One day she said she was too busy, and the next week she didn't come at all. The well didn't just lose her presence, it lost the warmth of their shared life. The Stoics would urge you to step back and observe, not to accuse, but to understand. They taught that love must be reflected in presence, in shared experiences, and in deliberate time spent together. When those things disappear, affection often follows. Ask yourself the difficult question: if someone truly cherishes you, would they keep choosing the world over moments with you? Sometimes the quietest absences reveal the clearest truths. Sign 4. One-way communication. There's a moment in every fading relationship when the conversation stops being a dialogue and becomes a monologue. You talk, and they nod. You share, and they You ask questions, and you get answers as thin as paper. One-way communication doesn't arrive with a shout. It arrives with quiet, gradual withdrawal. The Stoics paid close attention to these subtle human shifts because they believed that affection naturally expresses itself through attentive presence. When someone stops participating in the exchange of thoughts, emotions, and everyday reflections, the silence becomes its own kind of message, one that echoes louder than words. Epictetus once remarked, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." The Stoics valued the balance of sign 4, one-way speaking and listening, because it reveals our inner posture to communication toward others. There's a moment in every partner stops listening, fading relationship when the truly listening. Some conversation stops being a thing deeper, often changes dialogue, and becomes. You might find a monologue. You talk, and they nod. Find yourself explaining the same thing 3 times, only to you share, and they receive a distracted. You ask questions. What was that? Or maybe your message, and you get answers as thin as paper. Messages go long. They reply. One-way eyes go short. Communication doesn't arrive with it. Over time, you begin to feel shout. It arrives with like you're throwing your voice into a quiet, gradual canyon, and the canyon has for all. The Stoics forgotten how to echo back. Stoics paid. Sign 5. Overemphasis on physical intimacy. There's a quiet truth that many people overlook. Affection is not measured only by touch, but by presence, intention, and emotional connection. When a partner places almost all the weight of the relationship on physical intimacy while neglecting conversation, shared experiences, or emotional closeness, it can feel like the spotlight is always on your body, never on your soul. In a dramatic way, it's like being cast in the lead role of a romance film, where the script is missing all the scenes that show genuine feeling. The Stoics would see this as an imbalance of values, a sign that desire is being mistaken for affection. Seneca once wrote, "Love is a friendship set on fire." He didn't mean a fire that burns bright and fast, but one fueled by trust, mutual respect, and emotional depth. When the physical dimension becomes the main, sometimes the only avenue of connection, that flame becomes unstable. You may notice your partner grows affectionate only in moments of passion, yet distant in quiet moments. They might avoid deeper questions, dodge emotional conversations, or become uncomfortable when the relationship enters less physical territory. Like a house that looks solid from the outside but echoes hollow within, the foundation begins to reveal its cracks. Many old stories warn of this imbalance. One folktale tells of a traveler who met a woman who offered warmth, food, and shelter, but every night she insisted the fire was the only thing worth tending. When the traveler asked about her life, her dreams, her fears, she simply stoked the flames higher, avoiding his eyes. The villagers later told him, "A fire that refuses to share its light has no warmth at all." The tale reminds us that physical closeness without emotional openness leaves both people cold in the long run. A Stoic perspective urges us to look not at intensity, but at consistency. True affection shows up in how your partner treats your vulnerabilities, your thoughts, and your shared time, not just your body. When physical intimacy becomes the primary currency of connection, it's worth asking yourself a deeper question. If the physical was taken away, would the relationship still feel alive? Sign 6. Unwillingness to resolve conflicts. There's a certain kind of silence in relationships that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels heavy. When a partner repeatedly avoids resolving conflicts, it's like living in a house where the walls are cracked, but someone keeps throwing a beautiful rug over the broken floorboards instead of repairing them. The atmosphere becomes tense, brittle. Stoic philosophy reminds us that harmony isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of understanding. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action." In other words, the moments that challenge us are the very places where deeper connection can grow, unless one partner continually refuses to engage. You might notice this unwillingness in small, subtle moments. A disagreement turns into a cold retreat. An unresolved argument sits untouched for days, or every difficult conversation is brushed aside with, "Let's not talk about it." Over time, these avoidances pile up like unaddressed letters, each one containing an emotion, a boundary, or a need that was never acknowledged. It's not the conflict itself that erodes affection, but the refusal to walk through it together. A relationship that cannot withstand discomfort becomes fragile, easily shaken by the slightest tremor. There's an old folk story about two farmers who shared a fence. One day, a storm knocked down part of it. The first farmer said, "It's fine, the cows won't run far," and left the fence as it was. The second farmer insisted. A small break becomes a big escape, and mended it immediately. Weeks later, the first farmer's cows wandered off, costing him dearly. The village elder simply said, "He feared the work, not the danger." When partners refuse to repair emotional breaks, they risk losing the very connection they're trying to protect. From a Stoic viewpoint, love is strengthened not by ease, but by the willingness to face discomfort with honesty and courage. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." When someone consistently avoids conflict, they aren't protecting peace, they are avoiding truth. And so the real question becomes, if your partner refuses to stand with you in the storm, how can they fully stand with you in the calm? Sign 7. Inconsistency between words and actions. There's a moment in every relationship when you stop listening to the words and start watching the steps. Because words, no matter how warm, poetic, or perfectly timed, mean very little if they evaporate the moment real life begins. When a partner's actions repeatedly drift away from their promises, the relationship begins to feel like a movie with beautiful dialogue but missing scenes. Something essential goes unwritten. The Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." And in love, this truth hits harder than anywhere else. Inconsistency doesn't always arrive with dramatic betrayal. Sometimes it shows up quietly. They say you matter, but they never show up on time. They promise support, but disappear when you truly need them. They speak of commitment, but avoid making real plans for the future. Over time, there's an old folk tale about a lantern maker who boasted that his lamps could withstand any storm. A traveler bought one, trusting his confident words, but the first strong wind shattered it, leaving the traveler in darkness. When he returned, the lantern maker shrugged and said, "It wasn't my fault, the wind was too strong." The traveler replied, "Your claim meant nothing because your work could not carry its weight." In relationships too, Affection isn't proven by grand declarations. It's proven by the strength of everyday actions that carry the weight of care. From a Stoic viewpoint, consistency is one of the clearest markers of sincerity. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Let your actions be the only proof of your intentions." And so, the question rises like the final echo in a quiet room. If your partner's steps never match their sentences, if their promises crumble under the smallest pressure, what does that reveal about the affection they claim to have? Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this reflection. If you're still here, it means you're someone who values clarity, emotional honesty, and the kind of wisdom that doesn't just soothe but strengthens. The Stoics believe that truth, even when uncomfortable, is the foundation of a life well lived, and relationships are no different. Your willingness to explore these deeper signs shows a rare courage, the courage to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. Carry that with you. Let it sharpen your insight, protect your heart, and elevate the love you choose to welcome into your life.